Good evening. Welcome to another edition of the Houston Roundball Review presents Folks Talking Sports. I am KG, Kris Gardner, owner and co-founder of the Houston Roundball Review. With me right now is Willy Gibson from Ohio and WTG Sports. How are you, sir?
Doing well, sir. How about you?
Doing well, and let me do better this time off the bat as we're here on Folks Talking Sports. And of course, Folks Talking Sports is available on the Houston Roundball Review YouTube channel and also Folks Talk Sports on Twitter. And here we are, just bring him in, Mr. Andy Yanez. How are you, sir?
Doing good, Chris. How are you guys doing?
I'm
Oh,
doing
well,
well. Let's get into it. Mr. Gibson, I'm going to give you props and grief.
okay.
Props, you said that Eric Spoelstra would coach circles around Boston head coach, Mr. Mazzulla.
Yep. Hexagons. Yep.
That's right. You did say hexagons. Miami went into Boston, won the first two games up 2-0. Grief,
I know.
you and I also, both of us, picked Lakers to beat the Nuggets. Lakers are one loss away from being broomed and swept out of the playoffs. So how do you digest that, sir?
Not well. Not well. Yeah. The first part, I love it. I mean, I never expected Miami to win two in Boston. I almost text you guys Friday night like I changed my prediction, Miami in 4, but I don't really believe that. But the LA piece, I mean, props to Michael Malone and his staff and Denver. I mean, you got to give it to him. And he's letting us know that we haven't been giving him his props and his team their props.
Yep.
He's letting us know every post game.
And I mean, one of my reasons for not picking them is because they hadn't done it yet. And the defense was not very good. The defense has been solid throughout. And the Lakers, they've had droughts at the wrong times. But the Nuggets they've won these games. Okay.
Right.
If it's Joker, Jamal Murray. I mean, other guys have stepped up. Bruce Brown, former Detroit Piston, Bruce Brown, another one of those awful. But I digress. Anyway, let the man go, whatever. It's the reason why the Stones are where they are and have been for a while. But okay. So kudos to the Nuggets for getting it done, for getting the dubs. And as I've said on other platforms and said to you and fans, it's not Denver's fault if the Lakers aren't getting it done. If your opponent's not doing that part, you know what you do? You step on their neck, take that W, and move on. That's what you do, and that's what Denver's doing. So, yes, salute to them. Kudos to them. Boston. Boston has more individual talent, but they are not playing as the better team. And clearly, they do not have the better head coach. So those factors right there. And full disclosure, I read about it, did not watch game 2 because I was at the theater getting some culture and celebrating in honor of one of my best friends who passed away. But her birthday was on May 19th. But she got me involved in the theater, so I want to go to the theater on her birthday. So I didn't see the game. But I hear about Spo going to zone. And I'm just floored at how pro players act like they have no idea. Hell, pro coaches act like they have no idea how to defeat a zone defense. Like it's the first time in your life that you ever went against zone. I'm like, you had it in high school, college? It's like, oh, the NBA zone? What do? I had no idea. So y'all take it right there because I want to get into the fun discussion about Mr. Harden. More about Mr. Harden. But go ahead, talk about the Boston. And Andy, you chime in on your thoughts on Boston and what they're not doing or what Miami is doing.
Well, we got to start with Miami, and I guess if we're going to go with what they are doing, what Jimmy Butler is doing, kind of featuring both teams, but I can tell you what Grant Williams did during game 2, and that was poke the bear.
Poke the bear,
and talk trash to Jimmy Butler, which, what was the stat that kind of sparked the what was the run that Miami went on? Was it 13-4 or 13? It was something along those lines. Long story short, Miami ended up taking advantage of that game or taking the lead in that game, and they never looked back. Now they're up 2-0, and they're on the verge of keeping pace with the Denver Nuggets, who are up 3-0 in the Western Conference Series. But it comes down to really, it just comes down to all the little details. When I agree with you, what you said, Chris, but Boston, at least on paper, has the better talent, even though that core of players have been playing together for years now, and they've had relatively sustainable success for the most part, being able to make deep playoff runs for whatever reason this season. And it's not just in these first two games against Miami. You got to go back to against Philadelphia. I mean, that's the reason why they were on the verge of being eliminated against the 76ers, even going back throughout the regular season. So props to Eric Spoelstra, to Miami Heat. And I mean, they're just playing with I know they told this to LeBron heading into the Western Conference Finals, but Miami's kind of the team that's playing with house money. I want to say toppled over the Milwaukee Bucks. They really have no pressure, and they're just going out there, and they are imposing their will on all these teams in the playoffs so far. And really, a lot of times they're just going out there and they're out punking them. I mean, they're the physical team. They're the ones that are crashing the boards. It seems like every time that even when teams get a stop, Miami crashes the offensive rebound and they come away with a big shot, big possession. So kudos to the Heat. It's much more credit to them.
And Boston has better individuals, but they've had what the hell moments for the last 3 years. Where they've had brain farts, like giving big leads away or having a quarter of this trash defense, like they just snooze. And they haven't learned from it. So different coaches, but players still there. The Jays there, Grant Williams, Marcus Smart, some of these same dudes there making the same mistakes, same brain farts. So Miami's like, thank you very much. We know not to do that. Our coach, hell, as players, we know not to do that. Robert Williams, inbound mistakes. Things like that. Forgetting who to guard. This they do that consistently, and up until now, they've been able to overcome it. But so far, these first two games, Jimmy Butler, Spo, no. Y'all give us an inch, we're gonna take a mile, and make you pay for your mistakes. Make you pay for your sleep. You're going to sleep at the wrong time. You're napping on offense or on defense. So salute to the Heat. And I want to get your thoughts on this because I know where Justin's going with it. But Justin, what about the Heat? What was their record? Where were they in the regular season? They were in the play-in.
The Heat were dead in the water when
they
got
water.
Smoked by Atlanta.
And they were down to the Bulls. Okay.
Yeah.
Down
4
to
minutes
the Bulls. So they were almost done before this run they've gone on. So is Miami overachieving, or did they just, we don't need the regular season. It doesn't mean that much. So which is it? The Lakers, they changed their team in February. Yep. So the first 50 games of the season, it's not even the same team. So if this team were together for a full Lakers were together for a full season, I doubt they'd be around 12th in the West. They'd be fighting for 4 or 5 in the West. That's what I think. But, Will, where is it? You're Buckeye.
Yeah.
He's just not playing well, Will. He's what
not.
are your thoughts on it?
Facts. He's not playing well. Averaging 9 points a game in the Western Conference Finals. And I had someone earlier tell me today, well, they wouldn't be in the Western Conference Finals without D'Lo. And you got to remember, when they made this trade, he missed like 3 weeks right after the trade. I think the second game he played, he injured his ankle, and he sat out for like 3 weeks. So he really wasn't a part of this run that they had early on. They've seen him before in LA. Magic famously said, I need a leader. He's not a leader.
Yeah.
I got to get him out of here. and now he's back. I think where there's smoke, there's fire. I think the sign and trade for Kyrie might be on the books for now. I mean,
No, I laugh because that's something that Bomani Jones and Ron Windhorst discussed in Windhorst podcast that came out today, late last night.
Did they?
Was one of the possibility of Kyrie becoming a Laker.
Okay.
And it was tied into the money that teams, Kyrie has had issues. Kyrie has burned bridges in previous stops, but Kyrie talented, and teams were like, there's 3 or 4 teams that won't happen here. We can fix Kyrie. We can solve those problems. Well, Lakers one of those teams. So don't be surprised if Kyrie becomes a Laker. Bringing up, speaking of, did y'all see it? Twitter, the aggregators who went with turned articles and tweets all abound from Windhorst's comment about there is an appetite for James Harden to get a 4-year deal, $50 million per. I and found the podcast, the part of that podcast of him and Bo. First part, if you don't know, recognize voices. First part is Bomani, and then Windhorst says it.
Some horrible ideas.
Yeah, I mean, paying James Harden $50 million a year over 4 years, which is what it seems like there appears to be an appetite for. I mean, it's insane.
Just the whole thought I have as I see through all of this, like the talent is spread out enough and there's just enough parity that everybody can really trick themselves into what might be some horrible ideas.
Yeah, I mean, paying James Harden $50 million a year over 4 years, which is what it seems like there appears to be an appetite for. I mean, it's insane.
Who are these teams? Who in the hell? And heaven help Rocket fans if the Rockets are one of those teams willing to give James a 4-year deal. The 4 years is bad enough for me. Okay, that's 2 years too much if I'm the Rockets. But $50 million per?
I think they're the only team. Truthfully, me.
I think the Philly might do it. It's
Philly.
No.
Boré might do it.
Yeah. I mean, here you. Will, this is for you.
Hey, speaking of that, number one, appreciate you, Joe. Harris Ahmed. I hope I said that right. He also hit me up on Twitter, and he said, hey, you got to smile, and why do I always look at the screen? Why do I look away from the screen? And I'll address that if I can.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah. All right, so when I do terrestrial radio, over-the-air radio, there's monitors ahead of me. And perhaps I need to change my setup in my home studio, but there's a screen to my left. So if you see me go like this, I'm always cognizant of something that's going on, maybe a game or if something I can bring to the show. So right now it's Miami-Boston pregame. So if you see me go like this, and I'll be mindful of it and not do it as much, I'm always looking to see if something may have happened and may have occurred that I can bring to the show. But I'm mindful of that. I am smiling, Joe. I am smiling, Coach Sampson. And we're good. Yeah. We're good.
So for folks who are wondering or what the reference is Thursday, the three of us were on the lunch break. And of course, that's also available on Paul Simon Gym YouTube and Houston Roundball Review YouTube with Coach Sampson. And his first time Coach Sampson was on that show with us, and he saw Will as soon as Coach popped on the show, basically kind of in the studio. Will, you're not smiling, man, like you're sucking on a lemon. So he said that a couple of times, but it's all good. But if you haven't seen that show, I urge you to go watch it. Coach Sampson spoke with us for about 40 minutes.
Yeah.
A lot of info, a lot of insight. And he told me initially he'd give us 10 minutes. So he did it times 4. So, and then at the end of it, he gave us some good advice and some
Yeah.
words of encouragement as well. So definitely check it out when you get a chance. But yes, Tony M in reference to
It was the Kelvin
Harden
Sampson
4-year
takeover on
deal,
Thursday.
Woo!
you know, but yeah, get your thoughts on it, Andy and Will. 4 years. Let's go with that. 4 years. Does that make sense to you?
No,
No,
that takes him to
it
his
doesn't.
age 38 season. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Right.
No, we're thinking the exact same thing. I mean, this is a week ago, Game 7, Boston, Philadelphia. James Harden looked like, I can't remember who said this, I can't remember if it was said on ESPN or it might have been on another network, but they said that James Harden is probably the oldest 34-year-old that they've ever seen in the NBA with just the way he plays. And there was times during that series, especially in Game 6 and 7 against the Celtics, where he couldn't get past the initial defender, and he was losing the ball, losing the handle. Now, fast forward 4 years from now, when he's 38 years old, what are we doing? How could you give him a long-term commitment like that when he's already starting to show signs of, hey, first of all, if it's at a max deal, like Brian Windhorst said, it's insane. But then just talk about the length. Let's not even get involved with potentially how much the deal would be worth, but just the length. James Harden is a 38-year-old. Would he even play till he's 38? It makes no sense.
My question for both of you and Jackson Gatlin on last night's or Saturday, if you're watching later on, Let's Talk Houston Rockets with me. He asked me, talking about, this is before this 50 million came out. He asked me what I thought if James Harden, how many years did I think he had left before a decline in talent and fall off a cliff? I said, well, he's already having a decline in talent. That's already showing. But a fall off a cliff, 2 years. Do you agree with that? Or you think it's sooner, like a year, that he falls off a cliff? Because when it happens, it happens. And it's like going to
like Peyton Manning's last season, honestly. And 2 year, I could see that. I could see the 2 year window, and I think it might come sooner, to be honest. It's starting to show cracks, and it depends on what role he's asked. Like if he's playing on a team that has more talent, where he can kind of opens up another can of worms, because apparently reports are he wants to get back to playing a different style instead of how he has been with Philadelphia past few seasons, and even going back to his days in Brooklyn. If he's on a team where there's more talent and he can just be a distributor, I think that'll extend his prime's already passed, but I think it could extend his very years where he's making a significant impact on a team.
This is from Chris B. Haynes. Yep.
And he goes to a team that, and it just makes no sense, but a team where he would be asked to be more of a scorer, a year max, 2 years max.
Because we exchanged messages about this when Haynes put it out there. That last line: competitive roster and the basketball freedom for the star to be himself.
You want to kick it. That's both. I want to play basketball, but I also want to be out here.
It sounds like he wants Mike D'Antoni to coach him. That's what it sounds like to me.
And that's a reason why he's in the conversation.
Because that is not Ime Udoka. Oh, no, that's not.
See, and that's the other thing. Chris, Will, this is what I was thinking about over the weekend. Say that Harden does come back to Houston. Say it's a 3-year deal. Or 3-4 years, longer than 2. And he starts having conflict with Ime Udoka. Now, what is that gonna? Where will Tilman Fertitta's kind of thought process be like if he has his star? And I can't remember what article it was, but one said that their relationship, Harden and Fertitta, are really, really close, or Udoka, and that'll just cause more conflict.
Which gets me to this. Jackson brought it up. Jackson is of the opinion, in mindset that Tilman will listen to Rafael, other people within the organization, and not give Harden huge money, close to max money. Jackson he had a scenario of a possible sign and trade between the Rockets and Philly. So then you get into, so Philly could get something back for James instead of losing him for nothing. And that would allow the Rockets to also add another veteran free agent, trade KPJ, Jayshawn Tate, KJ Martin in the deal and sign a trade to Philly. But my thing is, do you believe Tilman would do the right thing and not give James would listen to his personnel, the people in the franchise, and not give him close to max money, or just say, I'm an owner, I'm in charge, this is what I want, and this is what's going to happen?
I think it's the latter, but when I hear the sign and trade piece, what's the incentive for the Houston Rockets to help Daryl Morey?
Only in the sense of, Jayshawn Tate, he's not going to be here. He's not going to be part of the core rotation. It would, you get James, who will still be a very good player, and still have enough space to go get a veteran player like a Pirtle, Brook Lopez, whoever else, who be upgrades over Jayshawn Tate, KJ Martin. That scenario.
And I'm just thinking. You just mentioned Brook Lopez, so okay, Brook Lopez. So what about? Help me,
Sengun?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because I saw him in Cleveland, and him and Jabari Smith, they were looking decent. So do you bring in a veteran to take away from them? And then what's the other guy? Garuba. Yeah. So with Brook Lopez, how does that work?
I think some of the younger core, when they bring in two vets, they're just not going to play, or they'll be traded. Depending on who it is. But it's a question of what Ime wants to do, because he does believe in Alperen Şengün's skill set and potential, but he did kind of say that if get a shot blocker, veteran shot blocker, he did not say that vet would start, but depends on who it is. And Alp right now, come off the bench, be a strong bench, if you upgraded the starting center spot. So time will tell. But Andy, do you believe Tilman would just say, I'm in charge, I want James Harden, I believe the fans are going to come see James, they're going to buy tickets, and that's why I'm doing this trade, this deal?
Yes. Why? Because he's done it before. Now with the Rockets.
Keep going, Andy. Keep going.
Oh, Kris, you know.
I don't know. Tell me.
Kris, go ahead.
No, Andy, go ahead. Because I want to know where you're going with this.
Well, the football coach at a certain university not too far away, who reportedly was the main catalyst behind that hire.
It's his. Well, that's his coach. That's his dude. Dana Holgorsen. That's his guy. He's untouchable. Heaven help the Cougars. Oh my gosh.
But no, in all seriousness, I could totally see that happening, especially when, again, we kind of touched on it last week. The biggest move for James Harden, you can argue about the on-court fit and all that. At the end of the day, the biggest reason for that, in my opinion, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that, would be to get some excitement and get more people through the turnstiles. They don't do turnstiles anymore, but basically get more butts and seats at Toyota Center. At the end of the day, that's the main reason behind the move. Because from a timeline perspective, it doesn't make any sense.
Okay. Keith Pompey, Philadelphia Inquirer, wrote that the fans are past how James left. Based on last night, based on tonight so far, I think the percentage there's more fans who are not past it. It's a higher percentage than the folks who are past it. But saying all that, the Rockets still averaged 15,000 people in the building to see a team lose, to see a young team struggle. If they, with a better head coach, because, you know, many fans want to see when Silas gone after year 2. So they got a better head coach. We all agree to that.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to improve in wins. I think that's based on having a new head coach without bringing in James Harden. So I think they would get the attendance would improve simply because of internal improvement and Ime Udoka as head coach. So there's not a need to go crazy on a James Harden deal, honestly, period, but anything beyond 2 years. If Tilman does it, Corey, Steven, Tony, especially Tony, because Tony, I don't know what Tony would do if, you know, who was, there was somebody else, I don't know if it was on Twitter in the comments section, who said that if the Rockets, I think it was based on the tweet about Windhorst and the $50 million per, if the Rockets did that person would become a Spurs fan. I mean, he would be done with the Rockets. So I'm kind of curious how many Rocket fans would no longer be Rocket fans if they gave Harden a deal like that. So Tilman's it could be a risk to do that, thinking that Harden on the squad would create more interest and sell more tickets. Agree?
Oh, definitely a risk.
It would divide the fan base, especially, again, depending on what type of contract it is. Because, my goodness, if they give him a 4-year, 3-year deal, the max, it'll be equivalent to when the Texans traded DeAndre Hopkins for David Johnson.
Well, and then got Jamon here. Still going to have to scrap the rebuild by trading Green, Smith, or Şengün.
Ooh.
See, that's another thing. Going back to Will's initial question about a sign and trade, why would the Rockets give up their young core? They're starting, Jalen, Jabari, LP to help out Daryl Morey. Y'all know how I feel about Daryl Morey. Look, we can sign James outright. Okay. So you're going to take back who we're going to give you, and that's going to be KPJ, Jay Sean Tate, and KJ Martin. If that's not what you want, my boss says go sign James outright for whatever James wants. So Daryl, your call. How about that? Will Rafael do that?
You should. There's no reason to trade one of your core assets for James Harden. It makes no sense.
I agree. And it's a question right here, comment here. Either Tilman is serious about the future of the Rockets or he just cares about the money. Time will tell. Other comment from Mudbone right here. He doesn't want Harden on an overpaid contract. I'm not sure there's anybody who does. Even Harden fans want the Rockets. Hell, Harden fans or Sixers fans. I wonder what Sixers fans, what their thoughts were when they heard or read the stuff from Wendy. 4 years, $200 million contract for James Harden? What fan thinks that's a good deal?
Daryl Morey.
We'll see with him, because Daryl always believes and says a lot. He's the smartest man in the room. Well, if you sign James Harden to a 4-year, $200 million contract, no, you're not. No, you're not. And from Philly point of view, it'd be 4 years, 210, and anybody else be 4 years, 201. $9 million between friends, that's Will's in his sock drawer. He got that kind of money hanging around the house. So nothing right there. But so we'll see. Don't let Tilman be another Jerry Jones. Just want tickets. Well, we're going to find out. We will see what happens because Dana Holgerson hasn't done much except go, what is it, 7-5, 8-4, and win 2 third-tier bowl games and piss off a lot of U of H football fans. So we'll see how that and prepare and lower the bar for expectations in Big 12 football this first year. And Tilman's okay with that. We will see how it all plays out. Well, Mr. Big Ten, Mr. Ohio State, let's shift some gears. Pete Thamel from ESPN wrote about it. See if I can pull it up here on the screen. Let's go back to the beginning. Pete Thamel is basically reporting that there are problems with some people unhappy, Big Ten coaches, with the NBC side of the deal. Yep. And Thamel saying that Big Ten is going to have to pay back nearly $40 million to Fox because, according to sources, Kevin Warren delivered NBC the Big Ten football title game in 2026 without the full authority to do so. This is all unfolded under the complicated backdrop of the Big Ten Conference not actually controlling the rights to the inventory of the latest deal. The Big Ten Network does.
Owned by Fox, 40%.
Yep. And they're going to have to pay back $25 million total for a deal to pay Fox for lost 2020 football inventory. COVID. Next, another part of it, there's tens of millions of dollars of value of the NBC primetime deal in flux, as new commissioner has been racing to ensure it keeps as much of its original value as possible. We go on and on. But one of the things I want to say here, because this involves the Ohio State, Will.
Yep.
Multiple sources told ESPN there's been pushback from a number of schools, including the team up north, Ohio State, and Penn State, to play those late November night games under the new contract. That leaves Commissioner Fertitta to figure out how to uphold a deal for hundreds of millions of dollars for prime time games without cooperation from some of the league's marquee teams for part of that final month. But this is what I don't understand. Within the industry, though, there was an expectation that, considering the scope of the deal, all schools would play in prime time. Quote from a source. The fault here is with the administration on campus. How did the presidents, chancellors, and ADs not know this? The universities all signed off on the deal. Will, what are your thoughts on that? You agree with that?
Yeah. I mean, right. You signed off on this. But to back it up a little bit, it makes sense when I read that now, because last Monday, a week ago tomorrow, it was announced that Ohio State would play Michigan State under the lights, 7:30 NBC. And everybody to a person thought that was odd. Like, why are we announcing this in May, this random November 11th game against Michigan State at night? Okay. And then I guess to kind of cover up, they announced, oh yeah, the team up north game will be a noon kickoff. Well, we always knew that. That's not an announcement. The team up north game is always a noon kickoff, whether it's home or away. So everybody was kind of scratching their heads like, why did they announce this November 11th night game against Michigan State? Now we know why.
So coaches and the administrators, if y'all didn't read the terms of the deal, that's a you problem.
Yep.
I mean, that's why you have attorneys, lawyers who go with the fine print. Make sure all those I's dotted, T's are crossed. So that part of it, I was like, why y'all mad at Kevin Warren for that?
Right.
Now, Tom Izzo and the coaches, Andy and Will and everybody watching, Tom Izzo was upset. He was upset initially when all this came out because he perceives that the coaches were not in the loop of how many games would be on linear and how many games would be on streaming platforms. You're a coach. I mean, you're a hell of a coach, Hall of Famer, but you're a coach. Okay. You're not school president. You're not the AD. How much thought do you think you deserve to be involved in this? What do you say, Will?
Tom is always upset. to start. He's never not upset. But yeah, I mean, the only thing I can think of is maybe from a recruiting aspect that you want your product seen by a recruit at all times, and even now in this day and age, recruits have access to streaming platforms. So that was the only thing I could think of. Like maybe he's thinking that his product is compromised by being on the streaming platform. But most kids watch streaming platforms before they watch linear stuff anyway. We're on the streaming platform right now. So,
right.
yeah, it's like, yeah. So, going back to my original statement, Tom Izzo's upset all the time. So,
and, and other coaches, I forgot who was mentioned, Matt Painter should be involved with the transparency of it. And I think
it was
Ryan
Chris
Day.
Holtman. It was Chris Holtman.
Chris Holtman said that too.
Yeah.
And Ryan Day said he wanted more transparency and all. But for locally, as much power and leverage that Coach Sampson has at UH in Houston Athletics, Brett Yormark, Bob Bowlesby not going to. Kelvin, what are your thoughts on our media rights deal, dude? What should we do? What do you want? That's not happening. That didn't happen.
No.
So, Andy, what are you going to say? What are your thoughts on the issues that Big Ten's had with NBC, what we've discussed so far?
Well, it's certainly interesting when you read that portion of the clip where Kevin Warren sold the 2026 championship game to NBC when he didn't necessarily have the full authority to do so. But no, I agree 100% when it comes to the coaches side of things. That stuff that's, for lack of a better phrase, above their pay grade. And like you just kind of gave the comparison, it's if you do it with one coach, then where do you draw the line? Because if you're going to go with Tom Izzo at Michigan State, then what in the world, how many more other coaches do you have to talk to across the entire conference? And then it becomes like you have to start talking to every single one. And at the end of the day, it's not really something that should be up to them. It's something that needs to be decided by the higher ups in the conference.
Can I say something? I just thought about it. I know a couple of things. This is focused on NBC having an issue. They had a problem with NBC.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't hear anything about CBS. CBS has the Big Ten package as well. They have the afternoon package, but it's the prime time piece. So why is it that CBS doesn't have an issue? Or they don't have an issue with the CBS portion?
Well, let me ask you this, because I didn't know this until reading Thamel's article. How long has it been part of the conference or the teams about night games in November? How long has that been?
That's been, man, as long as I've been around. I've never known it not to be the case. Yep.
Okay, so learn something there. Now shifting gears, UConn and Big 12. See if I got the right slide up here. All right, the Benedict there, that's UConn AD David Benedict. Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark was in Connecticut last few days meeting with the higher ups. Gino, not you, sorry. Bobby, Hurley's not you either. Football coach, not you either. Mr. Moore. With the higher ups, above pay grade. But this quote from David Benedict about possibly UConn joining the Big 12 and whether it's a benefit, because a lot of UConn fans are thrilled to death that UConn is back in the Big East, rivalries, travel, it's better fit, all the kind of geography, everything. But quote from him: I don't think money guarantees success. I think you can look around the country and identify programs in those conferences that aren't winning national championships or are competitive at that level. In some cases, members of Power 5 conferences are still losing a lot of money on an annual basis, even though they're getting 5 times more than we are. So it is not a direct or the only correlated factor in demonstrated success or future success. It certainly can help offset the financial piece, but I would have no interest in going into a situation that, this is me, personally speaking, we're going to get more money, but you're not going to be competitive in anything. That is not attractive to me at all. And that certainly was a factor in making the move back to the Big East. Thoughts on that? Do you agree with his logic, his rationale?
Andy, what do you think?
You got something
From
to
a
say, Will?
UConn perspective, in terms of what their fit with potential Big 12 would be, or about money not necessarily constituting success?
The latter.
Competitive.
The money piece.
Well, that's when you depends on who you asked, but I mean, let's be honest. The money drives a lot of these decisions, and quite frankly, it's probably the primary reason for most of these decisions. That's why UCLA and USC are heading out of the Pac-12, heading into the Big Ten a year from now.
But does it make sense? Does UConn to the Big 12 make sense from a UConn perspective?
From the UConn perspective, I would say it does financially. Now, if you look at it from football, shoot, their exposure is going to be getting beat out more often than not and going 1 win, 2.
Oh, we lost you. Andy,
The
we lost you
school-
there. There you go. You're back now. You're back now. Yeah.
What I was going to say is that in football, they'll be going through seasons where they're going through 1 win, 2 win, 0 win conference seasons. But at the end of the day, for the school as a whole, we'll be getting more financial benefits. And from a basketball perspective, it'll definitely benefit them in that side of things.
Would it?
I think it would.
In basketball, how so?
In terms of the again, going back to the finances that they'd be receiving, and arguably, potentially in the more marquee matchups.
I mean, they're blue blood already. Now, once again, they're blue blood once again. The reigning champs. Men's basketball, of course, we're talking about.
Right.
Is not.
Right. But it's a good argument, but I think financially the resource they would be getting would trump whatever benefit or lack thereof of the football success that they would not have with Trump, in my opinion.
And this is what they paid to leave the AAC, $17 million to leave the AAC, another $3.5 million to the Big East. UConn would owe the Big East a $30 million exit fee if they left before its 7th year as a member. Any entry fee would have to be negotiated with the Big 12. Thoughts on that? The money part of it, the money piece. Steven says too much traveling for UConn to make it worth it. Thoughts on?
It'd be really close to when they were in the American Athletic Conference in terms of the travel.
Well,
I don't think that'd be that big of a factor.
Cincinnati had been in the Big 12 at that time.
West Virginia.
Those were Big East schools, essentially. Were.
You know, UCF down the coast.
Yep.
And they're winning now. You know, obviously, I know UConn fans, when they were in the American, the rivalries weren't there and blah, blah, blah. Well, after they won the championship, Kevin Ollie, the program started falling off. So they weren't good. Fans stopped coming to the games. Well, they're good again. And if they're playing Kansas twice a season, regular season, their non-conference games won't change. You know, Houston, Baylor, they're still playing very good teams in the Big 12. As long as they're good, the attendance should still be good. So that part of it, I think they'd be okay. Rivalries, you know, geographic rivalries, depend on the sport, depend on the fan base. it's not reality. Houston, it's an issue because Houston fans are just lazy. They don't want to support anything that doesn't look like Southwest Conference days. But
Can I
well,
can I go back to that Pete Thamel story just real
yes.
quick? Because
Go ahead.
I'm not coming for Pete Thamel. I understand he's an award-winning journalist, has sources, but he mentions that the 2026 Big Ten championship game
Mhm.
that Kevin Warren gave to NBC, he didn't have the authority to do so, so they owe Fox $40 million.
Right.
As a result, nearly $40 million. But what he doesn't mention, and that's why I was scrolling through looking, because I was like, that doesn't sound right. The 2024 Big Ten championship game will be on CBS. But there's nothing mentioned there about any payback to Fox for that game. That just is interesting to me.
Yeah, that's a good point. We'll see how it all plays out. And the timing of this is kind of strange too, because it's May 21st. So
Right.
okay, well, Andy, from a Big 12 perspective, would Brett Yormark want UConn in the Big 12?
For the Northeastern market, for the New England market?
Does it make sense?
In what way?
From Brett Yormark's perspective, to expand the conference to the Northeast, make the Big 12 a national conference. Does that make sense?
It builds in depth and exposes your conference connections a little farther up Northeast. So in that way, it does.
But what about the student assets? Student athletes. What about them?
Again, going back to the comment by Stephen Wall, compared to the travel they would have to do in the Big 12, it wouldn't be that much different from the travel they had to do in the American Athletic Conference until they have to factoring in BYU, which and any potential future other additions that would be farther out west. But at that point, it would be the quote unquote super conference, might not be the right word for it, but at that point,
one thing that's not mentioned, no surprise, is when UConn was in the American, UConn women's basketball, their deal with SNY TV network was an issue because UConn women's hoops, men's as well, but specifically women's basketball, have a pre and post game show. One of the few, especially for women's basketball, college basketball, have pre and post game shows airing on SNY. The American, part of the deal with ESPN, that's basically tier 3 rights. That stuff was on ESPN Plus. Gino, this is not good. I don't like it. That was a big factor. UConn fans didn't like it. They were going to lose the SNY part of their package. SNY extended that. Now the UConn's back in the Big East. They're continuing that for basketball, but women's basketball especially. If they go to the Big 12, Andy, the tier 3 rights for every member school in the Big 12 is where?
ESPN Plus.
Big 12 now on ESPN Plus. So, Gino, it's above your pay grade. But once again, I wonder if the AD, Dave Benedict, will take your phone calls. Dave, you can't do this to me, man. Or Chris Daly, whoever's going to be the coach once Gino steps down. We just left the conference that was going to take us off SNY. Don't do this to me. We're already losing. We're not winning national championships like we used to. Come on, David. You can't do this to me, man. Would that carry any sway at all to Dave Benedict? What do y'all think?
I wanted to bring up this comment from D-Skills, which it's another great point. Again, going back to the tie into that region,
Oh, yeah, I know why Brett Yormark wants to do it. No doubt. Oh, yeah. But from a basketball perspective and men's basketball for UConn, they feel like being in the Big East is part of their birthright. It's part of who they are. It's part of their blood, their reason for living is being in the Big East. Hurley, Gino, everybody, UConn fans, alums, we belong in the Big East. So, President David Benedict, but the Big 12 is going to pay us $35 million, $40 million a year, $45 million a year. Is that going to be enough reason for them to, well, okay, that's more than $8 million we got in American. So yeah, let's go to the Big 12. What do you think is going to happen? Because that's more money, less exposure on your regional networks in New York. Because Andy, to your point about Rucker Park and expanding for the conference in being national, but you would potentially lose the option of having basketball games on SNY. Instead, they'll be on ESPN Big 12 now on ESPN Plus. Is that going to be, is the money increase going to be enough to convince those fans that this is worth it?
Well, right now, with the basketball only part of the Big East and football operating as an independent, how much are they bringing in?
It ain't $35 million. I know that. Yeah, that's for sure. You know, they are doing some renovations. And before the move to the Big East, they were more in the hole than Houston in terms of the subsidies they were getting and things like that from the university as a whole rather than the athletic department. Because what was it? It was like $40 million. They were struggling because football was bad. Nobody's going to football, and football makes the world go around. You know, college sports world go around. So they were losing copious amounts of money. And that was another reason that they justified going back to the Big East as an independent. They could schedule, they could get money games, and they could help kind of start cutting into the budget deficit. But if they go to the Big 12, $35 million per eventually, that would help reduce your deficits sooner than being in the Big East and getting, I'm not sure what each team's getting from Fox Sports currently, but that deal goes up at 2025. That's like, I think $500 million, started in 2013. So the payout that they're getting currently pales to what they would get in a move to the Big 12. Do you think it would happen? Will happen? We know what Brett Yormark wants to do. We know that. No question. But do you think the UConn people would say, well, this is better than American because of the money? Not necessarily because of rivalries. The money.
When you're potentially getting 3 times, 4 times as much, I think so. And I think a big, maybe not necessarily in the near future, but whatever happens with the Atlantic Coast Conference and the Pac-12 Conference very well could be another factor in it, in my opinion.
Thank you, Andy. That's be the last part of discussion on this edition of Folks Talk Sports. ACC. They had their meetings this week. The Magnificent Seven part of some, including Florida State, Clemson, Miami, NC State, Virginia Tech, had discussed possible ways to either increase the revenue, have unequal revenue distribution, looking into how to get out of the grant of rights, possibly a dissolution of the conference. A lot of different scenarios. What do you think will happen with the ACC within the next 5 years?
My mind wants to tell me, and I know we just talked about how football makes the world go around in college sports, and it does. If there was a caveat to that, I would say it's ACC. Because in the ACC, Tobacco Road, it's basketball. Clemson is, in the last decade, seemingly the top gun, so to speak, in the conference. But in totality, in the history of the league, it's been North Carolina basketball, Duke basketball, NC State basketball further down the road and in the past. So I think Jim Phillips, former AD of Northwestern, is now the commissioner of the ACC and is taking shots big time, big time.
No fault of his own because the deal was already made before he
right.
retired. Yeah,
exactly. So I think it's still a situation where North Carolina and Duke basketball are going to. And I know the president at Florida State made some comments. I read that, and I get it. He's looking at the SEC. He's looking at the Big Ten. Like these schools are getting $70, $80 million per. I'm getting a little more than half that. Something has to change.
But beyond leaving the conference, how else are they going to narrow that gap?
Right, exactly. I don't know. That's. I just don't see a full dissolution of the of the conference. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. It'd be interesting to see how this all plays out.
And I want to comment on Steven right here. What does UConn have to better the competition in the Big 12 other than basketball? Being in the Northeast region.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. Because honestly, what did Rutgers have?
The New York metropolitan market.
Add to the Big Ten.
Yep. Maryland.
So, Maryland. What do they have? UCLA has not been good in a lot of stuff. So that's really part of how this all plays out. And I'm gonna toss some rocks. Other than men's basketball, what does Houston have to offer the Big 12? Because football has underachieved. Track.
Non-revenue.
Yeah, non-revenue sports. Revenue sports, it's men's basketball. Don't even have to offer women's basketball because it's not on nowhere near the same tier as UConn women's basketball. So it depends on location, geography, different factors. But Andy said it, Will said it. Brett Yormark wants to get into the Northeast. That's his whole reason to do it. And I know D-Skills I don't even know if this is true. That UH has a heck of a golf team?
It is.
Really?
Yep.
Big 12 ready golf team?
Well, I don't know what Big 12 golf looks like, but in the American Athletic Conference, U of H golf was did more than enough to hold its own.
That's very good. Hey, the baseball team is 2 seed, going to the conference.
We shall see. We shall see what they do in the conference tournament.
Speaking of non-revenue sports, I got to give a shout out to my Ohio State men's tennis team.
They win?
They lost in the national championship match today. They beat TCU yesterday to make it to the national final, and they lost today. I apologize. It escapes me who they lost to.
Virginia.
But they lost to Virginia. Thank you. They lost to Virginia. So, no, they did not win. But shout out to Coach Ty Tucker and the men's tennis team of Ohio State national runner-ups.
So I think Virginia is back-to-back champs. I know so that's 2 in a row. But softball, UH softball, no. But I mean, there's different reasons for why a conference wants certain programs, certain schools. So UConn, Brett Yormark, the next media rights deal, he's hoping to really monetize basketball. And UConn, part of the Big 12, that would help that. That's for sure. So men's and women's basketball would help monetize in the next deal for the conference. And UConn women's basketball in the Big 12 would help restore the Big 12 women's hoops to national relevance, because once Kim Mulkey left for LSU, Baylor taking a step down. Everybody else, Texas has not held up their end of the bargain, and plus Texas is going to the SEC in another year. So there's another reason potentially down the line for UConn to join the Big 12. All right, fellas, we're going to wrap it up. Thank you very much to everyone for chiming in, for your comments, for watching us on YouTube as well as on Twitter at Folks Talk Sports. Will, the Lakers get swept?
Ask me that. No, Game 5 Wednesday night in Denver.
Andy, Lakers get swept?
No, I think they take one. They'll take tomorrow.
Boston get swept?
Whew, no.
I wouldn't be surprised. This will be. I'll say this: if they win Game 3, I wouldn't be surprised if they somehow pull off the upset and go back to Boston tied 2-2. They lose today, then I think they get swept.
Will?
No, I just can't believe it. Although I say no, but I just keep seeing Jimmy Butler in my mind. So I don't know, man. No. They don't get swept.
Imagine what ABC is thinking about a potential Denver-Miami NBA Finals.
Sick.
I mean, Denver's been the best team for the whole season.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter come ratings. It doesn't matter. Especially to the average fan. Average fan knows LeBron. Average fan knows Steph. You know, that's the reason why they watch the finals, because of name players.
Jimmy they don't know
they're gonna know the name. They're gonna learn the name Nikola Jokic and Jamal
They
Murray.
won't watch.
Nope, they won't watch. They're not even going to tune in. It'll be just basketball junkies. Basketball fans will watch the finals if it's Nuggets in the Heat. That's this. You know, that's it.
Yep.
Folks, for all the talk about hating dynasties in any level of sports, NFL, basketball, NBA, college, whatever, dynasties generate ratings. Even if it's to see them lose, people tune in to see them win or lose. And Joker against Jimmy Buckets. Jimmy who? What's his name? His last name is Buckets? Is that his real name? Last name Buckets?
Right.
No, that's probably what folks would get. And Denver has been the best team. Joker's playing great. Jamal Murray's rolling. Fans wouldn't care. Kyle Lowry, Tyler Hero. Damn. Who's that? Who?
Bam Adebayo. I know it's Adebayo, but I'm just saying, the
Bam,
average fan.
Bam Bam, is that it?
Yeah, right.
Is he named after the Flintstones character, Bam Bam?
Right.
So,
right.
So yeah. All right. It'll be a good hope. Yeah, Corey's correct here. I agree here. It'll be fun to watch, be competitive.
Yeah.
Ratings wise, no. But that's just how it is. Wrapping it up. Andy Yanez, how can folks find you on social media, sir?
They can find me on Twitter at @Yanez_5, Chris.
Willy Gibson, how about you? How can folks find you?
Also find me on Twitter and Instagram on @WillGibson7.
And of course, as it says on the screen there, but I'll have to go on the scroll as well. Find me Twitter at VHR Review, Houston Roundball Review on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, HoustonRoundballReview.com. Of course, our show is Folks Talk Sports on Twitter as well as on the Houston Roundball Review YouTube channel. We're going to go watch some hoops in a few minutes. Thank you, everybody. And hope you enjoyed the show. We talked about Rockets, Cougs, Big Ten, ACC, NBA. That's what we do here on Folks Talking Sports. So if you're interested in advertising, by all means, hit me up and email me at kgardner@thehrr.com. There it is right there. Reasonable rates for advertising. Oh, wow. I didn't know you could do a scroll and a pin. That's cool. Learn something new right there. Excellent. But yeah, seriously, if you want to advertise on our shows, my show, Andy's on Pod Slamma Jamma, I can put you in contact with him as well. We still got big plans going forward with the Big 12 in Houston. Hopefully at some point this month, I have another interview with someone higher up in the Big 12 conference. But as always, thank you for your time, your questions, and your comments. And we will see you next Sunday, gentlemen, or maybe this Thursday on the lunch break.
Possibly.
Excellent. Everybody, take care. Until next time, peace.